for the next one, I want to show you kind of wire, but kind of tabs. And I'm gonna use this thicker brass wire so you guys can see. So I used wire to create tabs here. I could have totally just like punched out a circle like Brooklyn did on her earrings, sawed off part, and just folded over the metal itself. I'm just doing wire because I wanted it to be daintier. And then because I wanted my wire to be round, what I actually used is one of the dies from our hole puncher, but literally anything could work. If you wanted it to be a rectangle shape, you could bring in a Lego and wrap it around that. If you wanted it to be thinner, you could wrap it around a pencil. Like, you can really use any tool to kind of mold your wire. And that's wonderful about it, but it also makes it more DIY, which can sometimes be overwhelming. And then when you're working with wire, I don't know if you all have used these, but these sets of pliers are awesome because when you pick them up, they already have every kind you need. So if you use these, they're in the pliers cabinet, but try to keep them all with all 6 pliers in them so they don't have any missing. And then I'm just gonna cut mine right now. Remember that your snips are these guys that have that kind of leaf half oval shape at the top. I've had people be like, these just aren't, my wire's not cutting, and they're using pliers that don't have a blade. So make sure you're using your wire snips to cut. And then what I'm gonna do, and what I will tell you also, is this being clipped in binder clips keeps it from all just springing out and tangling. So any of them that don't have a spool, keep that binder clip on there to keep it all contained. Otherwise it gets really tangled in that drawer and then we end up having to throw some away because it's too knotted up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wrap this around and I'm just using my finger to push it down. And just like with anything with metal, it wants to spring wider. So when I wrap this, I've got it all the way around, but it springs and it's a little bit wider than my actual thing that I used. So what I'm gonna do is similar to what we do with our jump rings, kind of push it a bit smaller and get that tension to be held so it will stay in the shape that I want. Another way that I can do this is similar to how we did the ring project. You could put it on something and hammer it against that to help hold it in place. But I'm gonna get, these nylon pliers are good because I don't know if you saw, but I just bent my wire and it caused a little kink in there. I can just kind of clamp with these to get that smoothed out and get it a little cleaner. And so I'm gonna bend this a little bit tighter. And then to help get it to hold in the shape, rather than hammering it around that little die, I'm just gonna hammer it flat because I have a little bit of wiggle room if it's not the exact right fit. I'm gonna leave texture by using my brass hammer. If you wanted to preserve the look of your wire staying rounded, just use one of the raw hide mallets so it's not gonna leave dents. I actually don't mind the dents, so I'm just gonna let it dent it up and flatten it a little. That's probably gonna be really loud in the video, I'm sorry. I'll sound edit. And then when you're doing this, we talked about this really minorly with the ring project, but by putting all that pressure on it, I'm doing what's called work hardening. So now you can see how my metal's just kind of springing back to that shape. It doesn't move as well. The nice part about that is if I'm wearing these earrings and I go to like tuck my hair behind my ear, if that wire is really soft and I snag it, I'm gonna misshape my whole earring. So work hardening is gonna help if you're working with wire, so it helps to get it stronger for you. And then I need to poke holes in my actual copper piece so I can hook my wire through. I'm just using this because it's big enough. You could saw out a specific shape. You could use the drill. I'm just using this because it's right here. By no means is this the only way for you to make holes for wire. And get this guy off. And again, I'm not being super precise here. I would mark it with a Sharpie, measure out, make sure you're doing it in a spot that you want it to be. There we go. And then poke through here. And then what I'm gonna do with my wire is create a tab so it kind of hooks in through the opening and holds onto my piece. So to do that, I'll use a pair of pliers. And when I'm bending wire, I'll show you on some of my scraps, depending on the nose of your pliers, your angles will be different. So my round nose pliers are gonna create round angles when I bend it. So if I curve it, it's all going to take the shape of the plier. So it's a really soft kind of loop. If I want a sharper angle, I can use flat nose pliers. And then you can see that's way more angular because my pliers are angular. If you want a smaller bend, that's where some of these chain nose pliers come in, where they're just really narrow on the end. So what I'm going to do is just bend my wire over. Did I just lose my wire? Oh, it's right here. I have too much wire in front of me. So I'm going to mark it a little longer than where I want it to connect, so that way I have the length to actually bend that over and make a tab. And then normally these little scraps are easy to just throw away. Remember that we have the recycling drawer so that you guys can put them in the drawer with the metal scraps, and then I can send it in and we can get it recycled. That way we're not wasting too much. And then what I'm going to do is use my chain nose pliers, so it's just a little bit of a bend. And I just push it against my thumb as I'm moving the pliers to kind of create the resistance that it needs. And now I have these two little tabs. So you can kind of see the like hooks on the end there. From there, I can hook it through, but I want that tab on the back. I can take some pliers and clamp this down. So make sure my wire's kind of in line so it's not going to be messy. Clamp it down. And I'm going to show you too, because I haven't been as precise with these, so all my hoops are different size because I didn't measure. I would recommend on yours actually measuring. And then I'm hooking this guy through. I'm just clamping this so it tightens up against my metal. And then if you want to really tighten it up, you could go back to hammering it. And same thing as if you're using a metal hammer, you're going to get texture. If you use the rawhide mallet, you preserve your texture of your metal a little bit. And then you can see like it clamped through, it held it, it's all stable, but I wasn't very precise, so it's off to the side where I punched my hole. This one, slightly different shaped circle. This one, a little bit smaller. So that's where like I'm just jumping into these without measuring. Measure the length of your wire. Make sure it's the same. Measure in where you're doing the holes. Make sure they're the same. And not like if this were a pendant, doesn't really matter. I'm really more so talking if you're making two of the same thing. And then that's it for tabs. But that being said, like I mentioned earlier, I did this with wire. This could be any type of metal. You're just folding it over to either hold something down or to hold on to another piece, like what I did here.